Welcome back, everyone, to Twin Hammer and to Kill Team. Hope you've been having a fantastic week. We are very excited today to present our Approved Ops 2025 guide for Kill Team. Now, Approved Ops is essentially a pack that standardizes competitive play. So you have maps that are standardized, you have missions that are standardized, scoring that's standardized, but within that, you have a ton of options, and they have come out with a brand new pack, which essentially means that we have a whole new way to play Kill Team. Now, this guide is going to be a refresher for returning players to Kill Team, but we also wanted to make it accessible for new players who are interested in trying out Kill Team, as it is an incredibly fun game, and we wanted to just break down everything for you. This will be a very quick summary on all of the new missions and Tac Ops and how scoring is done in Kill Team. So for returning players, this should give you a nice condensed brief overview of the new Tac Ops and new missions. And for intro players, this will give you your entry into competitive Kill Team. And we are going to go now into why Kill Team is just such a good game for competitive play. So Kill Team is the ideal tournament game. Why is that? Because you actually have 5 different types of boards, which are called kill zones, with standardized layouts to keep games both fresh and familiar. So you have verticality in these kill zones. You have ways of teleporting now with Tomb World. Very cool, dynamic, futuristic kill zones that you can fight over, and they are just incredibly fun and very cinematic. Also, if you are in a tournament setting, you bring a kill team with a roster. So, for example, Deathwatch have 11 operatives they can choose from. Let's say you bring 10, you've built 10 Deathwatch. You can basically pick a mix out of 5 of those each game, so you can have a different loadout each game, depending on your opponent, depending on the kill zone, and it keeps things very fresh. So within a tournament, let's say you're there for the day, each round you can play with different operatives based on what you need. You can also pick different equipment. So Kill Team has equipment that you can take. Basically, your Kill Team brings all of these tools with them to help navigate the kill zone and to help kind of battle their opponents, depending on what they need. So you can take ladders for climbing on Volcus, for example, if you need to go up a building. You can take barricades for safety if you need to get to a zone but you want to stay in cover, as well as barbed wire and mines for zoning out your opponents, and grenades like smoke grenades and crack grenades of all sorts, depending on your needs. There are also, now we're going to be talking about it, 3 different standardized methods of scoring that you can choose to focus on in each battle, giving you agency in each battle for fresh games, allowing you to choose different playstyles each round. So if you want to switch up your playstyle even within the same team, you can do that, which is really cool. Now, these are example pictures of what a kill zone is. So this is the brand new kill zone of Tomb World. Really cool. It's basically like a Necron Tomb World, which you are navigating all of these different rooms and teleporting between the different rooms. It's a kind of built on what the Gallowdark did in terms of being in a spaceship, but now you're in basically this lost tomb of these ancient Necron undead robots, futuristic robots, and it's a very cool vibe. It's got ancient but mixed with like new technology vibe. It's very cool. We've got a new Kill Team Deathwatch and new Kill Team Canoptic Circle that has just been released with this. So these are your Necrons here, and these are your very elite Space Marines who have come in and trying to get in there. Now, this kill zone you can play, these just come with it, but obviously it's going to just be a kill zone. You could play any of the 40 now teams in Kill Team on this Tomb World. Also, you have an equipment pack that has all of your universal equipment that you need, and an Approved Ops card pack. And for a reminder, you can find everything Kill Team at Top Shelf. Our friends at Top Shelf will take care of you if you need any of these things. Any Kill Teams, any equipment packs, card packs, they are your one-stop shop for everything Kill Team and hobby. They're located in Oakville, but they deliver, so highly recommend. If you need anything, they will take care of you extremely well. Now, getting into the summary. Approved Ops 2025. So, we have 3 different scoring methods for Kill Team. each game is going to simultaneously have 3 different ways of scoring points. This is your crit ops, your tac ops, and your kill ops, as well as you choose any of these, one path of any of these 3 as a primary op to give you bonus points. Okay, now a little quick summary for those of you that are just getting into it. We have crit ops, which are kind of short form for critical operations. They specifically interact with the 3 objective markers in each kill zone. We're going to get into that a little bit more. They're shared by both players. Okay, so one crit op is shared by both players. You have your tac ops, tactical operations. They're your secret and unique missions that each player is trying to attempt and fulfill each battle. You have your kill op, which is a kill operation. So you have to try to kill more of your opponent's operatives than they do of yours, and that's relative to the starting number of operatives. We're going to get into that. And shared, that's also shared by both players. And the primary op, you're going to secretly choose one of the above methods in the strategy phase of the first turn, and you're going to focus on that, and depending on how you score in that, you're going to gain bonus points. So depending on what you want to focus on out of these 3, you can actually gain some more bonus points at the end. Now, one thing to think about is Kill Team is a game of 4 turning points, 4 turns that they call turning points, and crit ops and tac ops are only scored on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th turning points. The kill op is the only one that you can basically start scoring on turning point 1. Turning point 1, if you want to go aggressive, you can, but a lot of times it's a little bit of a setup turn. Get in position to score the crit op and tac ops for the remaining turns. Okay, so now let's get into the flow of a competitive kill team match. So you would, in a tournament, let's say, you get paired with a player randomly. Then there is a kill zone and crit op already set up for you. Once you get to the table, you're going to roll off with your opponent for choice of side. So you can look at the board, and if you like particularly one side based on what you think you might be wanting to do, you can choose that. If your opponent wins the roll off, they could choose, and they can kind of, or allow you to choose. So you roll off, then you're both going to choose your operatives and reveal to each other. Okay, so like we said earlier, you could have 10 operatives to choose from, and then you choose your 5 and reveal it to your opponent. They do the same based on their kill team. Then you choose 4 pieces of equipment and you reveal it to your opponent. They do the same. You're both going to then gain 2 CP, so command points. These you could use for strategic ploys, basically special rules or firefight ploys that you can use at various points in the battle. You can spend your command points on those. You're going to choose a tac op, which is going to be secret. So you make a selection based on the archetypes available to you. We're going to get into those, and your opponent does the same, but you keep that secret. That's what you're trying to achieve secretly. Then you're going to set up your equipment. If you have any ladders, for example, or barricades, you're going to set that up, switching back and forth. Then you're going to set up your operatives. So you split your operatives into thirds. So your kill team is going to be split into thirds. You would set up 1/3 at a time, starting with the highest number. Okay, so once you're all both set up, then you would start the game. You're going to roll for turning 1.1 initiative. You're going to start turning point 1. You're going to gain an additional CP, so both players will start the game with 3 CP. Then you're going to choose a primary op in the strategy phase, one of crit op, tac op, or kill op to focus on through the game. Then you're going to go through playing turns 2, 3, and 4. Once you end the battle, you're going to count the total VPs. The higher is the winner, and then you can have the same number of points. It can be a draw. That can happen in kill team. Okay, so this is your overall flow. And like I said, again, this is more of an overview. We're going to do a deep dive later on. So this is kind of just to give you a sense of how the game is going to flow. Okay, so getting into kill op. This is one of the primary methods of scoring that you're going to be doing throughout the game. It's pretty simple. You're just going to try to kill your opponent's operatives, and they're going to try to kill yours. But every kill grade is based on the starting number of operatives. So if your opponent only has 5 operatives, killing each of them is going to be more valuable than if you had, for example, 10 operatives. They would have to kill 2 to get to kill grade 1, instead of you only having to kill 1 of theirs to get to kill grade 1. So it's based on the relative number of operatives. You could do some easy quick maths on this by just multiplying it by the kill grade based on the fifths. So if it's kill grade 2, you multiply their starting number of operatives by, let's say, for example, 0.4, and then you would round that up. We have an example here. If you're facing a Space Marine team that is 6 operatives, you would multiply 6 by 0.6 to get to kill grade 3. which would give you 3.6 rounded to 4. So that's why we see this number over here is 4. Instead of with the 5 operative teams, it's 3. It's because it's rounded up from 3.6 all the way to 4. Now, this rounding can take you by surprise, so it's important that you make note of certain jumps in these numbers as you're playing. You're going to have a card with the kill grade here from the approved ops, so you could keep that next to you just to keep track. It's important to keep track of it during the game because you can think that you're hitting a certain kill grade, but if you haven't consulted it, you might actually be further ahead or behind compared to what your expectations are. So at the end of the game, the player with the highest kill grade scores an additional VP. And if they're both tied in terms of the kill grade at the end, neither of them gets that additional VP. So it's a little way of getting a tiebreaker there. Okay, so next one would be our crit ops. These are our critical operations. They're basically specific interactions involving the 3 objective markers in the kill zone. Each game has 1 crit op, and it's shared by both players. This crit op is only scoreable turning points 2, 3, and 4. It's a maximum of 6 victory points during the game. And it basically, the overall flavor of it is it involves controlling these 3 critical locations on the map, or you could be transmitting data from those critical locations or receiving data, or you could be grabbing objects. So depending on the crit op, which we're going to just take a look at in a moment, you have different things you need to interact with on these objectives. So the objectives on each board are pre-laid out due to the map pack. This is an example here. We have 3 objectives on a Volcus board. They're indicated by 40mm round markers. On this particular map is an orange circle with a black skull. So you have 40mm markers. The surrounding outer circle indicates the 1-inch control range of it. So you have basically 1 inch. You could be 1 inch away from the marker and still count as controlling it. You don't have to be specifically on the marker. A lot of tournaments will provide basically that enlarged circle so that you can basically get a good visual on being within control range. There will always be 1 objective in the middle of the board, so on the middle line, so centered on the middle line. There will be 1 in the gray area. Let's say the board is split between gray and orange. You'll have 1 objective fully in the gray zone of, let's say, player 1, and then you'll have 1 fully in the orange zone of player 2. So it's split between both sides. So nice and even. Every board is kind of relatively even in its setup, so no player is favored just by being on one side or the other. Okay, so we have our crit ops, and these 3 are returning from the previous map pack, but we're going to briefly outline them here in case you are coming in new. We have secure. So basically, you're going to be trying to control an objective. You're going to spend an action point to secure it. So once you have secured it, that objective marker remains secured. So it stays secured unless your opponent comes on and secures it themselves. Okay, so it stays sticky. And at the end of each turn, you have 1 VP. You gain 1 VP for having at least 1 objective secured, or 2 VP for having more secured than your opponent. So let's say two objectives secured, or even you could have 3 objectives secured just to make sure your opponent doesn't even get 1. Okay, so it's kind of tap and go. Okay, you tap the objective, and then you don't have to stay there. It just kind of stays secured, but you do want to guard it. Otherwise, your opponent could kind of jump on it themselves. Okay, loot is our second crit op, and I kind of like to phrase it as a race to grab. So you're kind of trying to go to an objective, spend an action point to loot it. It can't be looted more than once per turn. You instantly gain 1 VP for performing this action, and you can perform this action on each objective once per turn, but you can only score a max of 2 VP per turn. You can loot all 3 to deny your opponent at least 1. That is an option. But so the main aim here is you're going to try to get there first in the turning point, because once you loot it, your opponent cannot loot it themselves. Okay, so it rewards early play, this one. Now, we're going to go on to our third crit op, which is transmit. I like to think of this as transmit and control. It's like you're turning on this signal beacon and you're trying to basically just stay right next to it to gain VP. So you have to control an objective. You have to spend an action point to transmit it. At the end of each turn, if you are controlling that transmitted objective, you can gain 2 VP from controlling 2 different transmitting objectives. So 1 VP per transmitting objective. But the caveat here is you don't actually have to be the one that activated it, like that started transmitting it to score. You only need to control it. So your opponent can start transmitting an objective. If you go and kill them and get on their objective, you can score the 1 VP for holding a transmitting objective. So a little bit of agency to kind of get in. Unlike loot, you can kind of go in and steal the points from your opponent in transmit. All right, now we're going to go on to the new crit ops of the new pack. So starting with Orb. Orb is a mission that kind of plays a bit like Hot Potato, where you don't want the potato, in this case the orb. And the way that it's going to play out is you're going to want to hold all the other objectives besides the one that has the orb. So the orb starts on the middle objective, and if you can control the objective with the orb, you can spend an action to move it to either player's marker. So either in the orange or the gray side, as we saw earlier. If you control the objectives without the orb, you gain 1 VP each at the end of the turning point. So basically what you want to do is you want to put the orb onto the objective that your opponent's controlling, and then gain control of the middle and your home objective to score 2 VP. Okay, so it's a little bit of kind of like Hot Potato. Okay, now we're going into Stake Claim. Stake Claim is an interesting one because at the start of each turn, as a strategic gambit, you and your opponent will basically announce a claim. Okay, so they're like, hear ye, I will control. And then you're going to choose a particular objective, one of the 3 objectives, and you're going to claim that you will either control it by the end of the turn, or your opponent won't contest it by the end of the turn. So you get 1 VP if that claim is true at the end of the turn, and 1 VP for controlling more objectives than your opponent. The caveat with this is that you cannot pick the same objective twice. So you have to choose each of the objective markers at least once per game. Okay, and try to make a claim on that objective marker. So it's going to reward good planning. If you know you're going to try to get a certain objective marker, you should claim that one for that particular turn. All right, now we're going to get into 6th crit op, which is Energy Cells. Energy Cells is about controlling the markers. In Energy Cells is about trying to pick up the objective markers. So you get 1 VP for controlling more of the markers than your opponents do for each round. However, you can pick up the objective markers for a heavy APL cost, and they get progressively easier to pick up each round. Okay, so you takes 3 APL to pick up the objective markers on turning point 2, 2 APL on turning point 3, and 1 APL on turning point 4. At the end of the battle, you get 1 additional VP for each objective you are carrying. So if you're not carrying it, you're just trying to score more, hold more objectives than your opponent. But if you can spend the action points and grab it, you're going to get additional points at the end of the game. An interesting one, the only crit op where you're actually going to be able to pick up the objective markers and move them off. All right, our other crit op 7 to 9, we have download. So control more non-downloaded objectives than your opponent each round for 1 VP. In turning points 3 and 4, you can perform the download action on the middle or opponent's objective you control to score 1 VP in the 3rd turning point or 2 VP in the 4th turning point. Only 1 download action per game is allowed on each objective. Okay, so in turning points 2, you're just going to try to control more objectives than your opponent. In turning points 3 and 4, you are going to debate whether you want to perform the download action on the objective markers to score 1 VP. Once you have downloaded any objective marker, it is no longer scoreable. So you could wait until the 4th turning point to try to get 2 VP, but your opponent is going to also be able to do it. So it's a little bit of back and forth between deciding whether you want to score early and maybe close out your scoring or try to score later. So there's a lot of moving parts in download, which makes it a very dynamic crit op. Okay, so now we're going to go to data, or data, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Control an objective, spend an action point to compile data once per turning point. At the end of turning point 2 and 3, gain 1 VP for compiling more data than your opponent has. Keep track on the number of times you have compiled for each marker. Then you can perform the send data on an objective to remove data and score points equal to the number. Okay, so basically at the end of turning points 2 and 3, you're gonna have wanted to compile some data more than your opponent. Okay, so you're going to go to the objective, you're going to spend an action point to compile data on that objective once per turn. Then you can perform the send data on an objective to remove the data and score points equal to that number. Okay, so you're basically trying to just stack data onto a point and then send data and score extra points on that as well. Okay, now reboot. We're going to get into reboot here, which is kind of like Whack-A-Mole Objective Edition. We're going to mark each objective 1 to 3. In each strategy phase, pick a number 1 to 3 using a dice in your hand and reveal it to your opponent simultaneously. If the same selection between players, that objective is inert. So let's say you both picked a 1 in your hand with a dice. Now, the objective that you've marked as objective 1 is inactive, inert. Then you're going to try to now score objectives 2 and 3. You're going to try to control those by the end of the turn. You get 1 VP for controlling an objective that isn't inert. Okay, so depending on... Now, if you have a different selection, let's say you chose 1 in your hand and your opponent chose 3, then the objective marked 2 is going to be the one that's inert. So then you're going to try to score objective markers labeled 1 or 3. Okay, so you're basically trying to score the ones that aren't inert, and the way that you decide the inert is through revealing the dice and through that little mini game. Okay, so that wraps up the small summary of each crit op. Now we're going to go into a little bit of an overall style in terms of the scoring. So just a little summary to keep it a little bit easier for us to remember. So controlling objectives at the end of the turning point to gain VP is a style of scoring that's shared between 5 different crit ops. You have transmission, orb, stake claim, energy cells, and reboot. They all require you to try to be on an objective at the end of the turning point, control it to score points. There are 3 other crit ops that rely on performing actions on a controlled objective but not having to remain on it, and those are secure, loot, and data. So you just need to get there, control it, and perform an action on these 3 crit ops, but you don't actually have to stay on the objective at the end of the turn. There's one that's a hybrid of both styles, and that's download. Okay, another little summary is in terms of the timing, there are a few Tac Ops that have to be scored each turn evenly, 2 VP per turn in turning points 2, 3, and 4. Those are secure, loot, transmission, orb, stake claim, and reboot. So 6 of these crit ops have to be scored 2 VP every turn maximum. There are other ones that have a differentiated scoring, and those 3 crit ops are energy cells, download, and data. And these can be scored at various times depending on the crit op, as we saw earlier. So just things to keep in mind as you're selecting your Tac Ops, which we're going to take a look at now. So Tac Ops, these are a very interesting part of scoring because this is kind of where you can add some flavor to your games based on how you want to play the mission. So although the kill zone might be preset for you, although the crit op might be preset for you, and kill op is always there, Tac Ops give you a little bit of different styles of play to score, and based on what you think would be best or how you like to play, you can choose different ways of scoring. Okay, and now we're going to get into the 4 different archetypes. Each team basically will be pre-assigned 2 of these archetypes based on the overall flavor of the team. So, for example, Exaction Squad, which are kind of like Riot Police, they have access to security and seek and destroy. So they're either going to be trying to kill their opponents or trying to secure an area. They're not there to do reconnaissance or infiltration. They're just simply there to either secure an area or just take someone out. Okay, now we are going to get into all of the archetypes. Okay, and again, a reminder, Tac Ops are only scoreable in turning points 2, 3, and 4, not in turning point 1. Okay, so getting into the first archetype here, the security archetype. This archetype The overall flavor is defending positions or escorting operatives safely. So the first choice that you have out of 3 is Plant Banner. Plant Banner is once per game, you're going to place a flag mission marker, which is going to be a 20mm marker, wholly within your opponent's territory or the opponent's side of the board, and defend, which in this case means control it, at the end of the turning point. If you control it at the end of turning points 2, 3, and 4, you get 1 VP each turning point. If your opponent doesn't contest it, meaning they're not in control range of that marker, you could still control it by having more APL than your opponent, but they could be there contesting it. If they contest it, you only get 1 VP. If they are not contesting it and you are the only one there, then you get 2 VP. Now, the interesting thing with this is, although you can only place it down once per battle, it can be moved after being placed with the pickup marker action if controlled by either player. So you can, if you place it in an area where you think you can no longer control it, you can basically move it and bring it to another area where you think you control it a bit better. Now, the caveat with this is your opponent can also, if they come and kill you and then grab the marker themselves, they can take your banner away and then deny you the opportunity to score those points. So it rewards kind of placing it in the right area and being really good with defending it, which is kind of a cool vibe. Our second TAC Op for the security archetype is called Martyrs. So Martyrs is a very interesting playstyle because we haven't really had a playstyle like this before, outside of maybe specific teams having something similar like this in the previous edition, but we haven't had this as a general playstyle. So basically what you want to do is you get 1 VP if one of your operatives gets incapacitated while contesting an objective marker each turn. So you don't need to control it, you just need to contest it. So if your opponent comes and kills you, you actually get a point, which is kind of interesting. If you control the objective after one of your operatives has died, so you put a little marker down if you've died on that objective. If you then go and control it by the end of the turn, you get another VP. So essentially you kind of want someone to get killed, but then end up controlling it anyways each turn. It's probably going to reward teams with like a lot of operatives so that if you do lose an operative, you're not feeling it. If you're taking this and wanting kind of an elite operative to die, it's probably not going to be the best kind of game plan. But it is an interesting one because even if you do get killed, you're getting points, which kind of mitigates mitigates kill op points for your opponents, which is an interesting thing to look into. So Envoy is the third one, and this is all about getting operatives unharmed into your opponent's territory. You need to get 1 operative that you nominate in the strategic phase into your opponent's territory each turn. It cannot be the same operative more than once, so you have to select a unique different operative each turn. Can't be one that you've already nominated, and you want to get them fully into your opponent's half, which is 1 VP. If they've taken any wounds that turn, regardless of being healed, they will only score 1. If they have not taken any wounds, you're going to score 2. Okay, so it's a way of kind of getting 3 distinct, unique operatives into your opponent's half throughout the course of the game. Okay, which gives you a little bit different. It's like a not so defensive way of playing, which is a very unique way of playing security here. So those are our 3 options for security that you can choose from if you have the security archetype available to your kill team. Now, the second archetype we're going to look at is Seek and Destroy, and this revolves around show of force and violently acquiring objective. That's the overall flavor of this archetype based on the 3 choices. The first one we're going to look at is Sweep and Clear. Sweep and Clear, you are going to try to kill an enemy operative that's contesting an objective each turn. If you do that, you put a little swept marker on that objective. If you then go and spend an action point on that controlled objective, you can declare it as being cleared. So at the end of each turn, you are going to get 1 BP for controlling an objective that you have swept, that you killed someone on. And you're going to get an additional point if you control that objective that has been swept and has had the clear action spent on it as well. So you kind of need to spend 2. You need to kill someone and then spend an action and then control it each turn. Okay, Seems like a lot, but given a certain situation, let's say you're doing this on the middle objective, it could be reliable if you can kind of just sweep in and kill them each time on a middle objective. Okay, now we're going to go to dominate. This is kind of like the show of force one. You're going to basically keep track. Each time you kill an enemy with an operative, they are going to start tallying up their kills. You keep a token count for each kill that your operative has made, and if they are surviving in turning points 3 and 4, at the end of those turns, 3 and 4, you can remove the tokens, the kill count tokens, from that operative to score points. So let's say you have a Death Watch operative, and they've killed 3 operatives in turning points 1, 2, and 3. At the end of turning point 3, you can remove all 3 of those markers, those kill tokens, and you're going to score 3 VP. Let's say now at turning point 4, you have another Deathwatch operative that has killed 3 over the course of the game and still is surviving at the end of turning point 4. You can upload an additional 3 kill tokens, getting you up to 6. Okay, so it revolves around killing and staying alive. So a very interesting one there. Now we're going to go into Route as our third one, and Route is a tac op that involves getting into your opponent's face and killing them right near their drop zone. So you get an immediate victory point if you get one of your operatives within 6 inches of your opponent's drop zone and you incapacitate them. If you do that twice per turn, you get 2 victory points. However, you only really need to do that once per turn. If you do it again, if you kill an elite operative, so 12 wounds or more, if that operative that you killed has 12 wounds or more, you instantly score 2 victory points. Okay, so you need to get within 6 inches. One caveat here is that your opponent's operative that you're killing doesn't necessarily have to be within 6 inches of their drop zone. So you could, if they're like closer to your side, you could just get within 6 inches of their drop zone and then shoot someone outside of that zone. It's only your operative that needs to be there. And then they just need to be killing someone. So that's a little caveat there. All right, so we've got Sweep and Clear, Dominate, and Route as our Seek and Destroy Tac Ops, giving you kind of 3 unique playstyles. All right, Infiltration. This is the third Tac Op archetype we are looking at, and this involves objective tapping, so you're getting to certain places and putting kind of devices on it. It involves tracking enemies, so enemy tracking. It involves killing and looting your enemies. Okay, so these are the kind of 3 different things that Infiltration is flavored by. So our first one is going to be plant devices. So you need to place a device marker on an objective you control. If you place it on your opponent's objective, the one fully in their half, you basically score 1 VP at the end of each turn. So if you get on your opponent's, it's like at the end of each turn, you have a marker on there, you're going to score 1 VP. If you place it on the middle or your home objective in your half, those markers have to be contested by the enemy, so they got to be on it or within control range to score an additional 1 VP each turn. So this is going to reward you if you can get to your opponent's objective and pop a device on there and then put one on the middle, for example, and they come onto it, you're going to be able to score some reliable victory points each turn. Okay, now we're going to track enemy. This one is going to involve having one of your operatives on conceal, and they cannot be a valid target, so they can't be shootable by your opponent. So they got to be behind, let's say, cover and concealed so that they can't be shot. They also have to be 6 inches of a shootable enemy target, so they have to be able to shoot the person that they're tracking. So it could be an operative that's kind of out in the open on engage, or it could be they're on conceal but they're not behind cover. And you need to do this. You need to have 2 separate enemy operatives that are shootable that you have an operative within 6 inches of on conceal. There is one little addition here. In the 4th turning point, you only need to have 1 operative within 6 to score 2 VP. In turning points 2 and 3, you need to have 2 operatives separately that you're tracking. Turning point 4, you only need to have 1 that you're tracking. Okay, so kind of about being covert and close to your enemy, and it could work well depending on the situations. It's kind of like a more cautious playstyle and defensive playstyle that you can take here, which is an interesting approach. Now, a third one is going to be called Steal Intelligence. So Steal Intelligence involves killing enemy operatives and spending an action point to kill them once they drop an intelligence marker. So if you kill them while taking this tac op, your enemy operatives are going to drop what's called an intelligence marker within their control range. You can then, throughout the battle, go within control range of that marker and spend an action to do the pick up marker action to kind of steal that intelligence. You can score these markers if you're holding them, if you've picked them up and you're holding them at the end of each turn, or you can score at the end of the battle for how many markers you've picked up. So you can score 6 VP at the end of the battle, or you can kind of be scoring as you go. You will need to kill 6 different operatives and do the pickup marker action 6 different times as well, but it can be a defensive one. So another interesting playstyle here, depending on how you want to go. And so there we have it. We have plant devices, track enemy, and steal intelligence for infiltration. 3 different unique playstyles you can take if you have access to infiltration. And finally, we have the recon archetype. This involves outpositioning your enemy, retrieving and holding items, and constantly watching the enemy. So this is the flavor of this archetype. So flank, we have our first one called flank. You want to have more of your operatives on your opponent's side of the board. So you split your opponent's side of the board into 2 halves. You want to have more operatives on either side of the board than they do if you split your side of the board into 2 halves. You want to have more of your operatives in your opponent's half than they do in your half, essentially. So you want to do this in turning point 2. You want to have a few operatives on your opponent's side of the board on each side, and then turning points 3 and 4, if you're still outnumbering them on any of their sides, you're going to score an additional 2 VP for turning points 3 and 4. So basically, the name of the game is have more operatives on your opponent's side than they do on your side. Can be interesting if you can sneak into your opponent's half safely, or if you just go fully aggressive and go in to their side. That could be a really good one. Doesn't cost any APL. The drawback is you are going into their side, which means most of their operatives are going to be there and going to have like a pretty good chance of killing your operatives. So this would be one where you have to choose it in the right moment. Retrieval is our second tac op in the recon archetype. You are going to search an objective marker you control, so any objective marker, and you're going to gain a retrieval token. If you gain this retrieval marker or token, I believe it's going to be a token, you are going to then try to survive with this token until the end of the game. So basically, you can search any of the, so you search once per game each of the 3 objective markers. Then you're going to try to stay alive after having searched them for an additional 3 VP. So you get 1 VP just for searching, and then another VP for staying alive with the retrieval marker that you have gotten from that objective. So very interesting. If you can get to all 3 objectives, could be a way of getting some nice consistent points. If you can get to an objective quickly and then just kind of run away, that's another way of kind of getting this playstyle as well. So probably will be good for fast teams or tanky teams. If you just want to score like 4, you could go to the middle and then your own and kind of just still tank it out. So yeah, pretty diverse playstyle on retrieval. And scout enemy movement is our last one for recon. This is a very interesting one. You have to spend an action to scout a visible enemy. So they don't have to be shootable, they just have to be visible. So any part of the model has to be visible to your model's head, basically. And they have to be more than 6 inches away. So you spend an action, you see someone more than 6 inches away from you, you spend an action, then that person that is now counts as scouted. So at the end of the turning point, anyone you have scouted, any operative you have scouted that's visible to a friendly operative at the end of the turning point gets you 1 VP. So you kind of have to do this 2 times. You have to scout 2 enemy operatives and they have to be visible to anyone on your team at the end of each turning point. So ideally you scout 2 different enemy operatives. They are visible to your team at the end of a turning point, and you score 2 VP. So, depending on the map and depending on the mission and teams, this could either be very easy or can be hard. Volkus, for example, has a lot of high walls and visibility. You would think, I just need to see any part of their model. They could just be hiding behind a big wall. So you kind of want to do this after someone's activated. You then scout them if they're out in the open, and then try to get 2 VP. So it can be either this one's probably going to maybe feel very easy at times or feel very hard at times, depending on how you play it and how your opponent plays it. So again, now we have flank, retrieval, and scout enemy movement. We have 3 diverse ways of playing the Recon archetype. Okay, so let's get into a little example match here. This example match is going to be between a player who has selected Deathwatch and a player who has selected Vespid Stingwings. So the Deathwatch player selected 5 operatives at the start of the battle. They've selected 4 equipment choices. They've selected the Dominate Tac Op from Seek and Destroy, and they've selected their primary as Kill Op in the first turn. The player 2, Vespid Stingwings, they've selected 11 operatives that they have to select. 4 equipment choices. They've selected the Flank Tac Op from the Recon archetype, and they've selected their primary as Crit Op. Our example game, they're playing on Killzone Volkus Map 2, for example, and the Crit Op that they're playing is Secure. So both players are attempting to secure the objectives and score points each turn, which is the Crit Op, and score points for killing operatives, which is the Kill Op. They're both trying to score their Secret Tac Op, so Dominate for Deathwatch and Flank for Vespid. And because of their primary choices in turn 1, the Deathwatch player is focusing more on killing his opponent's operatives during the game, while the Vespid player is going to be focusing more on securing the objectives. And so, if they play through the game, we're now going to go to a scoring summary. Let's say the Deathwatch player has had 3 points where he's had 3 objectives secured throughout the game. He scored 5 from Dominate, and he scored 5 from killing. So he's probably got 4 on the kill grade and Kill Op, and then an additional 1 point for having more than the Vespid player. And his primary is Kill Op, so he's going to get a bonus additional 3 points, because basically you're going to take 5 points, you're going to times it by 1.5 and round up, and then you're going to get 8 points. You can also times it by 0.5 and then just add that, so that can work as well. So 5 times 0.5 is going to be 2.5 rounded up to 3, and so essentially you're going to get 8 points for the Kill Op instead of 5. So he totals 16 points. Player 2, Vespid Stingwings, is going to have secured 4 times, so 4 points. They're going to get 5 points from flank. So let's say they really buzzed into the Deathwatch's zone, they outnumbered the Deathwatch in their area, and they've scored 5 points from flank. Kill Op, they've only managed to kill 3 out of the 5 Deathwatch operatives, so they get 3 points. Primary, they've chosen Crit Op, so they're going to get 4 points from the Crit Op times 1.5. At the end of the battle, they're going to get an additional 2 points for the Crit Op, so they're going to end up with 14 points. So the result is the Deathwatch player wins by 2 points. All right, so hopefully this summary has given you a really kind of quick but in-depth overview of the new approved ops. We are going to hopefully be doing a deep dive for those that want a little bit more information on the Crit Ops and Tac Ops for, let's say, experienced players. We're going to be attempting to do that in the very near future, give you a little bit more of a deep dive. This was more of an overview, and hopefully this has helped. And like I said, if you need any kill team related supplies, kill teams, kill zones, cards, or anything hobby, you can find it from our friends at Top Shelf in Oakville, and they will take care of you very nicely. I hope you've enjoyed. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you back on Twin Hammer very soon. Thank you.